Sheriff Sam explained that it was all quite simple. Working with staff from the Museum of Forbidden Technology, they had put together a time machine. Using the time machine, they had gone back 9 years and removed Frank Chen from his place and time mere moments before his death. And so they fulfilled the judicial order exactly as stated. Well, this is incredible. I can't wait to talk this over with my boyfriend, Carlos. He's a scientist, so he probably knows all about time travel and any complications it can cause. You might see advertisements for the new ownership of the Moonlight all over town. Steve said he even bought billboards on the purple crystal spire out in the sand wastes. I cannot wait to take my boyfriend out to have invisible pancakes. Judge Keaton has called everyone back into the courtroom. I have received information from top scientists, he said. Those top scientists, by the way, might be my boyfriend. No big deal. The judge continued. These top scientists have indicated to me that by moving Frank Chen out of the moment he is murdered, our timeline has been altered in countless ways, both small and large. I'll have to check with Judge Chaplin and Sheriff Sam, but it does appear that time has righted itself in the wake of Frank's murder. I think everything in our town is the way it used to be, which is great, because I cannot wait to take my husband and my son to the Moonlight all night and have ourselves a big stack of invisible pancakes. My husband Carlos, who watched the movie with me, didn't notice anything strange about the way the film ended, but Carlos also tends to fall asleep about 45 minutes into every movie we watch. It's the perfect balance of annoying and adorable. Again, at 23 minutes, he's in the crowd watching the square dance. Everyone's heads are facing left into the circles of dancers, every head, except one. And he's looking right at the camera again. No, not at the camera. At me. It was then that I knew who it was, but not exactly who it was, like in a dream. And I paused the DVR and showed the man to Carlos, and Carlos thought he was just an extra. If you pay close attention to Hollywood extras, you'll invariably see one of them acting strange, he said. The younger man lifts his face to the camera, and I knew who he was before he even showed his eyes. I knew. I knew. I knew. I knew. But before we can see him fully, cut to black. Credits. Suddenly I was unsure, and under the credits the sound of owls, that rhythmic hissing sound that owls make, it's like hydraulic pumps lifting a car. I woke Carlos up, his head fully across my lap, his eyes closed, a slight wheezing snore emanating from his nose. I rewound the film, but the DVR cut off before the final sequence, so I couldn't show him. And he said, "Cecil, I know it's your favorite movie, but it's also very old. Maybe it doesn't hold up like you want it to." "Maybe," I said. "But I know what I saw." His expression shifted from know-it-all to empathetic skeptic. "I think it's my dad," I said. "Which one? The one under the tree or the one with the shovel?" Carlos said. "Both," I said. "I've never heard you mention your dad before," he said. "Neither have I," said. And then we both repeated, "Huh," back and forth, 3 times, before folding the blanket up, placing it back on the top of the couch, starting the dishwasher, checking in on Esteban, who was still fast asleep, and heading to bed ourselves. I took my husband Carlos with me. We left Esteban with my niece for the morning because she just finished her semester and had some free time to entertain her little cousin. Carlos and I were anxious to get away, even if only for a couple of hours, to visit another adult. More on our adventure with Larry in a moment. Okay, back to our morning with Larry Leroy. When I reached out to Larry the other day, I asked if he'd like to have a coffee one morning. Something simple like that. There's a great new coffee shop in the Barista District called Katana, where they grind the beans by throwing them in the air and slicing them with swords. It's supposed to really maximize the flavor profile. But Larry suggested we come out his way. He'd make us breakfast, show us his new house, and then take us to an art exhibit. I didn't even know that we had an art museum in Night Vale. Larry said we don't, but there's apparently a super secret gallery showing out in the Whispering Forest. I did tell him that going into the Whispering Forest sounded incredibly dangerous because, well, it's enchanted. The trees whisper compliments to you until you eventually become a tree yourself. Larry agreed that the journey would be a treacherous one, but said that this is pretty standard for an art museum. I consulted Carlos first, of course, and he thought it was a great idea. I'm not sure he fully understood the risks. He was merely thrilled to have a brief moment not around an energetic toddler. So we agreed. And now back to our adventure in the Whispering Forest. Carlos, Larry, and I set out to the woods around 8 this morning. Carlos devised a brilliant plan to protect each other from the trees. Using basic science, Carlos realized that enchantments can be offset by more powerful enchantments. You know the saying, fight fire with fire? Carlos asked us. Of course, Larry and I had heard it before, but we never stopped to ask what it meant or even tried to understand through context clues. It was just a string of words to us. Well, Carlos continued, it comes from the scientific principle that the only way to stop a fire is to use a larger fire to put it out. Enchantments, even powerful ones that use flattery, work the same way. We were in awe of how vast Carlos's scientific knowledge was, and we both felt super safe. As we entered the forest, the compliments came hard and fast from the trees. Oh wow, you have perfect skin. And your hair is so shiny and voluminous. I could see Larry slowing down, almost breaking under the incredible kindness of the woods. But Carlos countered them by saying, Larry, you have the coolest shoes, and I've never met a more talented artist than you. And that's a manly stride you have there, Larry. Very confident. Carlos's strategy worked. How was he able to do this? I asked him. And Carlos said the secret to a great compliment is to focus on the subject's choices, not their bodies. We can choose fashion, careers, aesthetics, vibes, all that, much more easily than what our bodies look like. It feels good when someone notices what you have made for yourself. We reached the center of the woods in what felt like only 15 or 20 minutes, though we would learn soon enough that this was a lie. At a clearing in the trees, we found it. We found art. Hanging from vines, leaning against rocks and shrubs were some of the finest paintings I have ever seen. The brushwork, it's just extravagant, and the colors, divine. Now, I know nothing about art, and even I could understand these were all masterpieces. From 20th century postmodern abstracts to the rough and realistic Renaissance mythologies to the deconstructed still lifes of 19th century Impressionism. We were so taken by the beauty of the exhibit that we did not, at first, notice the figure in the dead center of the glade. Wearing a black cloak, a small crown with 2 horns, and a name tag that said, "Hello, my name is," and then the words, Mino, she, her, scrawled in black Sharpie below. I had to presume this to be the proprietor of the gallery, and that their name was Mino. Our eyes all met Mino's at once, and Mino said, "You should not have come." Looking up, we all became aware that the day was gone. Or at least, the sun was. The sky was black. though it couldn't have been yet 9 in the morning. "You'll never find your way out," Mino said. "Them woods are a maze," Larry muttered. "I usually say labyrinth," Mino said, "but yes, that." "Wait, time out. Sorry, I gotta pee, like really bad. Let's go to the weather." Anyway, we're in the clearing in the middle of the dark woods in what should have been mid-morning. We're told that the woods are a maze. Carlos, like the prepared scientist he is, pulls a compass from his shoulder compass holster, which was hidden beneath his black leather lab coat. And for those of you wondering, yes, Carlos is licensed to carry a concealed compass. But when we looked at it, the needle just spun wildly. I pulled out my phone, but the GPS could not locate us. We turned to Mino and begged to be released from the labyrinth. We promised to tell no one about the artwork. Maybe you stole this art? We won't tell," I stammered. "I mean, I'm not saying you stole it. I bet you own it outright, legally. On the up and up. I didn't mean to suggest that." "Shut up, Cecil. Sorry, I said that out loud." I was a nervous wreck. Carlos pleaded that we had a son at home who would miss his fathers terribly, and we were 2 fathers who would miss our son terribly. Plus, Carlos added, we told the babysitter where we were going, and she's a very responsible young woman who would immediately call the police if we weren't back by a certain time. And the police would come looking for us, probably, at some point, if they felt like it. Mino laughed, then pointed at 2 large spruce trees which were wearing blue FBI jackets. "The authorities have been looking for me for years," Mino said. "A couple of them even found me, but they couldn't resist the curse of these woods." "Gentlemen," Mino continued, "I am not keeping you here. I myself am kept here. I enchanted this forest years ago, but the spell has grown more powerful than its speaker. Even I am trapped in this labyrinth of my own making." Mino then made a fist and shook it to the heavens, which I thought was funny, but Carlos thought it was a little hackneyed. Larry took out his sketchbook. He'd been doodling in it all morning. He used it during our walk into the Whispering Forest to help distract himself from the generous praise of the trees. Mino said it was no use. The forest cannot be filmed or recorded or even drawn. Larry slumped upon seeing his sketchbook pages completely empty. Over my shoulder, I heard one of the trees chattering, trying to enchant us. It was too far away to have any effect, but I realized I recognized that tree. It was the one that had complimented me on my beautiful resonant voice. I clearly remember it telling me that. "We definitely passed that one," I said. "Close your ears and follow me," I called as I headed toward the familiar path out. Carlos, Larry, and Mino followed close behind, their palms clapped to their sides of their heads. Shortly after that, I saw another tree I knew. It was the one that had said it enjoyed my community calendars. I enjoy them too, tree. Further along the path, to the left, there was the tree that had said it found me a trustworthy voice of local journalism. How true, how true. In appreciation, I autographed the tree's trunk with my pocket knife. It's always loved to meet a fan. I pulled the others along the twisting path until we finally returned to the entrance of the Whispering Forest. The sun was shining once again. The 4 of us stood on the edge of the woods, panting and smiling. Carlos had to go pick up Esteban from Janice's dorm. I needed to go get to work. Larry wanted to go try out his new dark room. And Mino? Though finally freed from their own prison, Mino had no home in Night Vale. She wasn't from here. Larry offered Mino room on his couch, but she declined. "I will find my way," she said. "I have an old friend here in town I would like to see." Mino turned and walked alone across the dusty hills toward town. Before we left, Carlos asked me, "Larry and Mino and I had to plug our ears as we escaped the labyrinth. How were you able to take in all those compliments, sweetie? and still not turn into a tree? I said, well, I'm excellent at what I do. It's not a compliment if it's the truth, babe. Carlos just said, huh. I said, I love you. See you tonight. And I will. Carlos and I had a dumb argument about the spice rack of all things. Though looking back at it, I think I was just cranky, and it wasn't about the spice rack at all, but my own insecurities. I think I can fix things through words, but sometimes words only make it worse. I should listen more. I told Carlos that, and he was very forgiving. I don't deserve him sometimes, and right now I feel even more insecure. Of course I deserve him. We all get what we deserve, after all. Fortunately, it appears that Carlos and Esteban were totally safe from Valentine's. Carlos is more of a St. Patrick's Day guy, and Esteban is, a 4-year-old. As for me, I did what every Nightvale citizen is taught to do in the event of Valentine's Day. I ducked and covered, held on tight to the nearest table leg, and screamed, "Oh no, oh help, oh please," over and over until it seemed like things had settled down. The day after Valentine's, I ate a picnic in Grove Park with Carlos and Esteban and Dana Cardinal and Pamela Winchell. Carlos ate little. He said he wasn't hungry. Well, it happened again. We lost track of the dang moon. It was right there last night, doing its thing. And then tonight, nothing. I consulted with my husband, Carlos, who is a scientist, by the way. I've not mentioned that before, I don't think, but it's a very important job. Anyway, he said that he has no idea, because he has been playing Elden Ring for 22 to 23 hours a day and hasn't really gotten outside much. I suggested we could maybe take a walk, have a little us time, and also he could gaze up at the hole in the sky where once there was a moon and now there's only static. And he said, sure, that sounded fun, but he really thinks he almost has this boss. So maybe in a couple of hours after he's beaten it. I asked what Koshek was, if not a cat. Larry shrugged and said, I hope you get the chance to find out, old friend. I really do. Then he said, say, I never thanked you and Carlos for coming out to that art show with me last year. That was a lot of fun. If you're interested, there's a new exhibit just opened at the Big City Museum of Art. Larry said there were some classic masterpieces in this collection. I told Larry Carlos and I were actually planning a trip to the big city soon, and we'd love to check it out. Listeners, it's been a while, but I'm happy to say that Carlos and I took a little vacation together. Just the two of us. We've had some lovely and peaceful trips to the remote desert and the forest, but never to the big city. Lately, we've been talking about how fun it would be to see a musical, shop at fancy stores, and take in the myriad cultures of urban life. Living in what feels like the middle of nowhere, we often forget that the big city is only a couple hours in the car away. A place that close shouldn't seem exotic, but it really is. We had a fun time, and I can't recommend it enough. It was a little tough to leave home, though. Our son was in good hands with my family, so we didn't worry, but we certainly missed him. Plus, I've been hoping my cat, Koshek, will come back to his home here at the radio station. I mean, what if he returns when I'm gone? But Carlos said, Cecil, Koshek's been missing for 6 months. You have to come to terms with him being gone for good. And of course, Carlos is right. He's so scientific. So we packed our things and drove out of town. The first thing we did in the big city was visit Middle Park, a huge expanse of nature right in the center of this thriving metropolis. There were loads of trees and birds, plus people everywhere enjoying a gorgeous spring day. Some were skateboarding, others were reading on blankets in the shade, and others were camping in tents made out of hot dogs. We even saw a political demonstration. A group of protesters was throwing rocks at the sun. Wow. There's always excitement in the big city. Middle Park also has a beautiful lake where some of the last remaining ichthyosaurs live. People come from all around to feed them breadcrumbs, bits of ham, whole ducks, and Mountain Dew Flamin' Hot. Next to the lake is a dog park. Now, I was blown away by the lack of tall electrified fences around this area. There were people in the dog park. And dogs! I should suggest this for our own dog park at the next Night Vale Town Hall. The big city is packed with surprises. I even saw one man who had his cat with him on a leash. And the cat was so chill and accepting, and well, it reminded me of Koshek. I got sad thinking about him, but it passed. It passed. We came to the big city to get away, to have fun. And boy, did we. So, after the park, we had reservations at Le Fond de Tout, the only 3-star Michelin restaurant in the big city. It's postmodern French cuisine, so not only is it delicious, they are quite creative with their presentation. One of my favorites was the beef bourguignon. The entree was reduced to its chemical nutritional components, dissolved in a saline solution, and then the waiter came by with an eyedropper and placed 3 drops in each eye. Did you know your eyeballs can taste beef? Well, they can't. And that's kind of the point. This restaurant really makes you think. For dessert, we got to the cherry caffleuty. It's a classical French tart that's traditionally served by a blindfolded man on a 300-horsepower Kawasaki motorbike. But at Le Fond de Tout, our clafouti were served by a woman in a luchador mask driving a 1995 Chrysler LeBaron convertible with the top down. It didn't have the homey charm of the Moonlight All Night, of course, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime dining experience. There was one odd moment, though. As Carlos and I were paying the bill, I noticed an interesting couple one table over. A woman wearing a long cloak, her back to me, and a man dressed in a sharp black suit and tie. He was so handsome, like in a dangerous way. I wondered if he were mafia or a spy or some foreign oligarch. He was frightening, but I couldn't turn my gaze. Something about his eyes, they were kind. No, innocent and gentle. At one point, the woman put her hand to his cheek. I swear, it sounded like purring. It was adorable and strange. But it also reminded me of Koshek, and that cast a small shadow on our otherwise delightful dinner. Of course, just then the waiters brought the cart over to serve a single raw carrot tableside, before loudly shouting, "A murder has been committed!" and wheeling the carrot back into the kitchen uneaten. And I was once again in the classy fun of Michelin-starred dining. Carlos and I went to see a show in the big city. Listen, we have some great theater in Night Vale, but nothing beats the glitz and glamour of a stage production in the big city. Carlos got us center orchestra tickets to see Samuel Beckett's musical extravaganza, Craps Last Tape, featuring some really catchy numbers like Alone with a Tape Deck and Just One Man Talking Very Slowly, If At All, and Hello Starkness, My Old Friend. You would not believe the huge chorus line dance routines that this single 70-year-old man performed over no music, just the dull hum of a reel-to-reel machine. On our last day in the city, Carlos and I went shopping at a luxury boutique. Carlos got himself a Salvatore Ferragamo lab coat, some Tom Ford safety goggles, and a pair of Louis Vuitton hazmat gloves. I bought a maroon faux fur tunic by Dior and matching Dolce & Gabbana hunting cap. I also went to a touristy shop to get some tchotchkes to give as gifts. I got my sister a snow globe that features the big city's famous Statue of Eternal Fear. And for my brother-in-law, I got a t-shirt that has the classic big city slogan, "If I can make it here, I'm lying to myself." And I got my niece an official basketball jersey for the Big City Trouser Pants, which is her favorite NBA team. I love shopping, but I may have overbought. I had to carry these huge shopping bags around the Big City Museum of Art afterwards. We wanted to see the new exhibit featuring some of the most prominent names in modern art. Van Gogh, Cezanne, Monet, Kincaid, all the greats. Our friend Larry had told us that this was one of the best exhibits going, and he wasn't lying. We got to see Manet's Autumn Leaves on a Soccer Ball, Gauguin's Broken Bike Horn, and even O'Keeffe's Definitely Just a Flower. Those were all masterpieces, but I was especially taken by one work in particular. It was a small, maybe 14 by 10-inch painting by George Seurat called Magic Eye Dinosaurs. It was the first ever work of pointillism, which is a style of 19th century Impressionism that requires the viewer to cross their eyes in just the right order to see a three-dimensional image. It was stunning. I got so caught up in staring at this painting, I didn't notice the fire alarm had gone off. Carlos had to pull me away. The crowd filed out of the museum, mostly without incident, but one person actually knocked me over. I didn't see who it was. I just grumbled, got back up, and walked outside. My bags felt heavier, but I was in a foul mood and nothing felt right. I was bummed that our museum trip got cut short. But then outside, I saw that woman in the cloak. The one I'd seen at the musical and the restaurant. I finally saw her face clearly. And I knew her. It was Mino. Carlos and I had gone to see an art exhibit of hers in Nightvale last year. We both waved and said, "Mino, hi. How have you been?" She smiled and waved uncomfortably. I said, "Were you at the musical last night? I thought I saw you. And who was that handsome fellow?" I was chatting her ear off, but before she could reply, the shifting crowd filled the space between us and her. When the crowd thinned again, she was gone. It turned out to be a false alarm at the museum, but Carlos and I were ready to go. We had a tired, quiet drive home. Carlos listened to his new favorite podcast, My Brother, Your Brother, and a Cursed Amulet. We were too exhausted to unpack fully, but I did want to get my gifts wrapped and my new clothes ready for work the next day. So, no one tell him, but I've been preparing a little surprise for my husband Carlos. I guess you could say it has been 10 years in the making since, and I can't believe it, June 15th will be the 10-year anniversary of Carlos arriving in town. I don't even know how that's possible. Time flies. 10 years feels like only yesterday, but of course if you saw photos of yourself from then, you'd think, oh, wow, how embarrassingly dated. 10 years ago, we were all listening to the muttering voices coming from the shadowed alley downtown and wearing the silver hats that the muttering voices told us to wear and doing that strange shuffling dance the muttering voices commanded us to do. 2012 fashions are the worst. But now it is almost 10 years later, and we have such a surprise for Carlos. But don't tell him. But also, so excited. This has been our most important headline. This is a complete recall of Roaring Rapids brand shower heads. If you still have your body intact, you should return the shower head to wherever you bought it. We remain defiant and proud. Well, okay. It's a good thing Carlos and I never opened our new shower head after Steve got it for us for Christmas. It's not that we didn't want to try it, but neither of us are particularly handy, and replacing a shower head seems like a lot. Anyway, lucky break for us, I guess. By the time we got to the studio, I had only one eye. My chin was 3 inches shorter, and one leg has started to retract into my torso. I helped myself along because he could barely walk. He did not thank me. I am not confident he was aware I was there. I helped him into his seat behind the microphone. He looked at the broadcast booth in wonder. Like an exile allowed to return to his home after a lifetime of wandering, he licked his one remaining lip with the half of his tongue he had left. "Traffic," he whispered in a hoarse and horrible voice. "Community calendar." And then his eye became alert, and he looked at me urgently. "Carlos," he asked. "Carlos." The effort of saying the word made his body shake. I told him, "No, Carlos is safe. He is with me." And this other me nodded, his partial face showing profound relief. He leaned back into his chair and kept leaning and leaning and leaning until there was nothing left of him except his black coat, which smelled of cinder and sickly sweet candy. Okay, well, today is the day. Carlos is on the way to the station, and he should be here very soon, and I will get to present him with his surprise. I am holding the certificate. There isn't usually a certificate, but I insisted and printed one out myself. There should always be something tangible to mark the really important intangibles. You see, Carlos arrived in town 10 years ago today, and after 10 years, he is now officially part of the town of Night Vale, just as much as station management, and the brownstone spire, and Barks Ennui, the crime dog. He belongs to Night Vale, and Night Vale belongs to him, and no one can take that away. I got him a certificate. I couldn't find any appropriate templates, so it has a picture of a man golfing and word art that says, "Grats to my grad." But I think he'll get the idea. Okay, if you see him on his way here, please don't let him know. Oh, he's gonna be so excited. Looking back at these 10 years makes me think about everyone else who went through this decade-long journey with me. Take Dana Cardinal. 10 years ago, she was a high school senior, editor of the school paper with a strong interest in a career in journalism. She became an intern here at this very station, and you could say that really launched things for her. Specifically, she was launched into the same desert otherworld where Carlos was once trapped, and then she became mayor of Night Vale, and then she wasn't mayor anymore and will never have a mayor again, yada yada. An update on our top news story. Carlos called and said that as long as he's out, he just needs to pop into the Ralphs and pick up some stuff for dinner, which is so thoughtful of him. And I love him taking on that responsibility. But also, I can't wait much longer. To be the one to get to tell the love of my life that this town is his for as long as he wants it. To get to express that sense of belonging to one who was once unsure of his belonging. Well, I want to do it right away. But that is a selfish impulse. This day is not about me. It's about Carlos. And anyway, stopping at the grocery store so you'll have something to make dinner with, isn't that all just part of belonging to a town? Isn't every life lived day to day? And isn't every day lived moment to moment? Isn't it? Really? If you know the answer, please call in. I don't have a strong handle on how time works. Oh, the door to the producer's booth is opening. This must be Carlos. Hi, Carlos, surprise! Oh, it's my niece Janice. In any case, have you seen your Uncle Carlos? He was outside the Ralphs, caught in conversation with Telly the barber. Well, it's nice that he has found it in his heart to forgive Telly for that vile haircut. My own heart remains void of that particular bit of forgiveness, but I do hope Carlos hurries. I just can't wait. Another look back. Let's talk about the house that doesn't exist. You might remember that this house was in the old development of Desert Creek, out back of the elementary school. The house seemed like it existed, like it was just right there when you looked at it. And it was between two other identical houses, so it would make more sense for it to have been than not. But the house simply wasn't there. Also, it served as the gateway into a desert otherworld where Carlos was stuck for a year because he wasn't from Night Vale, and so the old oak door wouldn't let him back through. That's all basic science, and it was really difficult. But maybe it was good for us. The time apart strengthened our relationship. As they say, if you can do long distance, okay, great. But not having to do it is better. Of course, that will never be a problem again because now Carlos belongs to our town. I have the certificate to prove it. He should be here soon to pick it up. Oh, okay. Carlos is here. Okay, I'm going to hide their certificate. And here he is. Hi, honey.
Hey, Pumpkin. What's up? I was just in the middle of an experiment. Yeah, I had heated up a green-colored chemical until it was bubbling, and then I pointed this big orange laser at it, and then I wrote a bunch of numbers on a chalkboard, so I am expecting some truly groundbreaking results.
Ooh, I'm sure. And you will do your hometown proud.
My hometown?
Of Night Vale. Here's a certificate. After 10 years, you are officially a member of this community. Night Vale's weirdness is finally your weirdness. You are threatened by, and protected by, this town as much as any of us. Okay, listeners, Carlos is overcome. He's looking at the certificate. Oh, did you know I designed that certificate myself?
Oh, I knew that, sweetie. You sure love Comic Sans. But, wow.
Carlos, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Okay, listeners, please hold on. I'm going to take you to the weather.
I am once again thinking about the series of ongoing actions that we perceive as the present, and the amassing of memories that we treat as the past, and the hopes and dreams and worries and fears that we project as the future. I am thinking about time and how it's so finite and also so infinite, but not infinite enough. Never quite infinite enough, really. And I am thinking about space, which is merely a concept applied by humans to all that is not human around them. We believe our subjective to be the universe's objective, but we are mistaken. Space is what we fill with it. Ideas, other people, walls and windows, a sun, a moon, sand between our toes. We add it up to whatever is meaningful to us. And I am also thinking about a town, which is just a collection of objects and people no more meaningful than any other. Any arrangement of objects and people could be a household or a town or a city or a state or a country or an entire world. Arbitrary lines drawing arbitrary boundaries. Oh, and this one we call Night Vale. And it has been my home for 10 years. When I was not able to go back through the old oak doors because I was not from Night Vale, it hurt. It called into question my standing among people I loved, and so I did not hurry home. Cecil doesn't know how long that time apart was from my perspective, and he never will. Time is a funny thing. It's a joke with a sad punchline. It is nice, I suppose, this piece of paper, the idea that I belong. But I did not need a piece of paper. I did not need to be told that I belong to this town. Because this town belongs to me. It is an artificial set of boundaries around an arbitrary collection of objects and people, and I am one of those people. I help set those boundaries. I started contributing to the definition of this town the moment I set foot in it. My son was born here. My husband too. but all of us live here. I love my son and my husband, and I love Night Vale too. I actually don't need any piece of paper telling me that Night Vale loves me back. So here's to 10, 20, a lifetime more of years in this desert town. Time both finite and infinite, but never infinite enough. Still, I just have to say this certificate is very cute, and it was very nice of Cecil to make it. I will hang it up in my lab next to the photo of Hideki Miyazaki at his Nobel Prize ceremony. Here's to Night Vale forever. However long forever ends up lasting.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to pop into the bathroom to feed the kittens and... Oh, Carlos is gone, but he took the certificate. Did he seem excited? I bet he was. So excited. I'll listen back later. 10 years. Not that long in the grand scheme of things, I guess, but we don't live in the grand scheme, do we? No. Our personal schemes are much more modest, and 10 years is a lot to me. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll keep listening. I'll still be here, the voice of your community, coming to you wherever you listen. This all mattered to me. Every minute of it. I hope it mattered to you.